Hey guys, what's going on? It's Eli, back with another review video, and continuing on with Phineas and Ferb Weekend. Only two left, and we come to the second to last Phineas and Ferb special material. You know the drill, yeah. So, as was teased in the last review video, and, well, of course it was obvious, you knew what was coming next, and now it's here, you're watching it, and I'm about to do my review of it. Yes. Well, because Phineas and Ferb did so well crossing paths with Marvel, the Earth's Mightiest Heroes, them coming together, and what that Phineas and Ferb special had to offer. Well, not long after that, well, we would soon see Phineas and Ferb crossing paths with another familiar, big franchise. And, well, as I best put at it, and how I teased it, the boys would find themselves in a galaxy far, far away. Yes, just 1 year after the boys would cross paths with the Avengers, well, they would then find themselves in a galaxy far, far away. That's right, from 2014. Phineas and Ferb, Star Wars. Yes, Phineas and Ferb Star Wars. Oh yeah, this was definitely exciting to see. Phineas and Ferb and the rest of the characters in the world of Star Wars. And, yeah, because ever since, and man, because I remember, like, when Phineas and Ferb had their panel at Comic-Con, and it was especially around the time when, you know, we were going to see Mission Marvel, they made the announcement that, you know, we were going to be seeing the boys do something else. If Marvel wasn't enough, well, to make it more exciting and epic, to see them in the world of Star Wars. Yeah, the world of Star Wars, the galaxy, with all these characters and such, you know, just, fantastic, yeah. So yeah, again, I remember when this was announced, and of course, like all of us Phineas and Ferb fans, we were excited and prepped for it, and until, you know, next year came along, and when we started to see some trailers, etc., well, yeah, when it finally came out, well, it was yet not another disappointment to come from Phineas and Ferb. Yeah, everything that Phineas and Ferb Star Wars had to offer. The time and setting of this being in Star Wars Episode 4, literally, smack down in the events of Episode 4, where we have the characters of Phineas and Ferb, you know, kind of intervening with, you know, what is going on with the events of A New Hope. Most notably, it has to do with the Death Star plans, yeah. The Death Star plans that accidentally get in the hands of Phineas and Ferb, and they have to get them back into R2. It's pretty funny, yeah. But, you know, with the Phineas and Ferb characters in Star Wars, the storyline of A New Hope, you know, you know, it's exactly how it is, and how Swampy put it best when it was announced. You know, all the same story is how it is and how it's going. Just, yeah, how he put it. Yeah. You know, besides, because, fun fact, Dan and Swampy, they felt that, you know, doing a parody of something Star Wars had been done enough. Like, you know, I can think of most notably, say, when Family Guy did those 3 Star Wars parodies, where they were literally those characters. Well, you know, I'm sure for some, we would have expected maybe the same thing happening with Phineas and Ferb, but not this time. And I think that what they did instead for Phineas and Ferb and the world of Star Wars combined was pretty well. And, well, it worked, yeah. Just have them technically be their own characters in the world of Star Wars, still going by their names, but at the same time, you know, the fact that they're smack down there with the events of, say, A New Hope happening, like Luke Skywalker is there, Princess Leia, Darth Vader, Ben Kenobi, etc., just, yeah. And how, somehow, they are linked into the situation and storyline that happens in A New Hope, Phineas and Ferb. Again, they accidentally get their hands on the Death Star plans that was accidentally, knocked out of R2 and just, yeah. And the fact that Agent P, if it's not obvious, that he is part of the rebellion, so, yeah. And, of course, Doofenshmirtz, in some way, of course, linked with the Empire. And turns out that he was the one responsible for the design of the Death Star. But, yeah, of course, none of this being canon, and this special clearly states that, but yeah. So I, of course, remember, when this came out, and having watched it, and when it premiered, enjoyed it, of course, and, and having done a rewatch, well, of course, it still holds up. It's still another great piece of, material that has to do something with Star Wars, It is a parody, kind of, but how Phineas and Ferb do it. How they do it in their way, just, yeah. Not like any of those, as I said, where, Dan and Swampy, they wanted to bring something different and, not be in that same lane as all those other parodies, like, again, most notably Family Guy and Robot Chicken, technically, yeah. I mean, because with Robot Chicken, you had the Star Wars characters, well, be goofy and such in the world of Robot Chicken. Yeah, Robot Chicken, changing everything in the world of Star Wars. Just, yeah. Anyways, but, yeah. With what Phineas and Ferb Star Wars had to offer from beginning to end, and how it works so well and in connection with A New Hope, it's just everything about Phineas and Ferb Star Wars is fantastic. Okay, so, with the first things I've had to say about Phineas and Ferb Star Wars, now, as always, read the description / the story. Phineas and Ferb are in the midst of, a galactic rebellion, an epic struggle of good versus evil that tears the brothers apart. Stormtrooper Candace tries to stop the boys from making matters worse. Okay, now a little bit of background, some more background and such, because, well, as I explained, this was first announced at Phineas and Ferb's panel at Comic-Con, and, around the time when, of course, Disney had acquired Lucasfilm. Lucasfilm became a part of the Disney family. Word got out, of course, and, when those at Phineas and Ferb heard about this, most notably Dan and Swampy, well, Dan, most notably, immediately drew Doofenshmirtz in a Darth Vader suit. He took a picture and texted it to one of the heads of Disney TV animation, Eric Goldman, yeah. And, I smell crossover. That's what Dan texted along with the picture. And immediately, according to Dan, Eric texted back, and he texted Dan saying that he's having lunch with Gary, I think, another one of the main leads of Disney TV animation, and they're talking about that themselves. And, so, thus, plans underway to do something with Phineas and Ferb where they're in the world of Star Wars, and and Dan and Swampy, they laid out the details when they announced this on what was to happen in Phineas and Ferb Star Wars, and how, because Phineas and Ferb and the rest of the characters, how they fit into the world of Star Wars, and the main storyline of A New Hope continues as it is. Just, it's amazing. And seeing some of those concept arts, which we would see actually be in the special itself, because, the fact that they said that, Luke Skywalker is neighbors with Phineas and Ferb, Candace, Baljeet, and Buford are stormtroopers, and there's a moment in Phineas and Ferb Star Wars where Phineas and Ferb get into a fight. Literally, Ferb turns to the dark side. How? How does he go to be a part of the dark side and be a Sith? Because in that concept art, we see him in the Darth Maul getup, But of course, when this came out, we find out how he turned to the dark side briefly. So and being a Sith Lord. But all right. So with some more background out of the way, let's get into Phineas and Ferb Star Wars itself. Yes, sirree. So, well, it's hilarious how this starts off. Of course, we have to have the text a long time ago in a galaxy far, far away, but it's very different. A long time ago in a summer and such. It's pretty funny. And, of course, the opening crawl happens, and it's narrated. We get a voice. Jim Cummings is the narrator, episode 4A, and then like we hear Dan and Swampy's voices they're the directors, and telling the narrator how to narrate the opening crawl. Like maybe do it goofy, but then goofy and fast, but just drop the goofy voice and just stick with the serious voice faster, It was pretty funny. That's the only voice that Jim Cummings does in this. But, hey, it was worth it. Yeah. Because episode 4A, and once the crawl is finished, like, it's like a blinds, Like, that's pretty funny. And then, well, we cut straight to Tatooine, and literally one of the first things we see is, Imperial ship and such, and it's basically, an Imperial ship that's, a Star Destroyer, where it's basically has an office building up top of it. It's Empire Administration offices, and, literally, because on the Star Destroyer, we see these stormtroopers in work suits, because at the computers and such, and then we see Perry being there. He's basically stealing the Death Star plans. They're literally right there on board that Star Destroyer. Now, keep in mind, because, this coming out just 2 years before Rogue One, we know in the official canon how the Death Star plans were captured. So, yeah. And to think, because, this also coming out just 1 year before The Force Awakens came out, and this coming out the same year when, say, at the time, the 6th and final season of the Clone Wars happened, and also that same year, Rebels debuted. So, yeah. Anyways. So, Perry having stolen the Death Star plans, making his escape successfully out of that Star Destroyer, and when, the Star Destroyer turns around, it causes the office desks to slide, it's funny. And Perry making his way to Princess Leia's ship, and Princess Leia, of course, who appears. Princess Leia being, I completely forgot, because, Princess Leia being voiced by April Winchell, the daughter of the late Paul Winchell. Yeah. And those that do the voices of the Star Wars characters, well, they do a pretty good job, even though, because they only get a few lines. Still, yeah. So Perry delivering the Death Star plans, but of course, another Star Destroyer emerges, and, them making their way to Tatooine. I mean, they were just right there, right? Wasn't Perry already at Tatooine where that one Star Destroyer was? I guess, but yeah. But either way, yeah. They're up in the surface of Tatooine, the orbit of Tatooine, and of course, yeah, that's where A New Hope starts, yeah, because of course, where Princess Leia's ship is being ambushed and chased after by a Star Destroyer, and, seeing the stormtroopers board, and, 3 stormtroopers that we see, of course, and as I mentioned earlier, Candace, Buford, and Baojit. Yeah, they're 3 stormtroopers, and they really want to get into the action, especially Candace. But one Imperial officer tells Candace, along with Buford and Baojit, that their mission, the orders that they've been given, is to collect new socks for Darth Vader. Okay, I mean, granted, obviously, Darth Vader would wear socks, but okay. But that's Phineas and Ferb for you for this, but anyways. However, Candace does spot, along with Buford and Baojit, that, spotting Perry, Leia, and R2, and Leia giving R2 the Death Star plans and recording a message for Obi-Wan Kenobi, and Candace, trying to alert the one Imperial officer that she was talking to, the Imperial captain, and by the way, because from Richard O'Brien, Dan and Swampy, they voice a couple of Imperial/Stormtroopers, because, to go ahead and name them, because, Dan voices Imperial Officer number 1, Stormtrooper number 4 and 5. He voices Imperial Officer Dan, because, Imperial Officers Dan and Jeff. When do we see them? Until I get to them, yeah. And Dan also voices Stormtrooper number 8, and he voices Imperial Officer number 5. Swampy voices Stormtrooper number 3. He voices, and he also voices Imperial Officer number 6. Yeah, so, and he voices a nurse. So yeah, by alerting an Imperial officer, it's the captain. I mean, he doesn't believe in Candace, and, well, just to follow orders to get Darth Vader's socks. Yeah. And, Candace taking it upon herself, especially, to go and to get the Death Star plans back. And, having seen R2 and C-3PO get into an escape pod, Perry was supposed to be with them, but, accidentally getting separated from them. And then Candace, getting in another escape pod, Buford and Bao-Ji tagging along, and all of them making their way to Tatooine, and Perry sneaking into that escape pod that the Stormtroopers are in. On Tatooine, we get Phineas and Ferb, and turns out that Phineas and Ferb in this, they're the total opposite of Luke. Now, we know in A New Hope that Luke is sick and tired of living on Tatooine, and his desire to sign up for the rebellion, the academy and such. Yeah, wanting to really get out there. But as for Phineas and Ferb, no, they're very much happy living on Tatooine. Heck, because one of the first song numbers that we get is literally about the boys singing how much they love Tatooine. Yeah, we love Tatooine. Yeah, and the songs that are in Phineas and Ferb Star Wars, well, they're of course no disappointment, but yeah. So we love Tatooine, just a montage of what Phineas and Ferb are doing and what they explain/describe and what they do on Tatooine, just, yeah, the various things that we see them doing. It's funny. And yeah, because like when at one point, they meet up with Luke, and Luke's in his getup that we see in that one deleted scene where he looks up in the sky with the binoculars and can see what's happening in space. Yeah, that's a nice detail there. Phineas and Ferb showing off Luke that they made an upgrade to their speeder using pod race parts, especially with the mentioning of picking up some power converters at Tashi stations. That was good. So yeah, I mean, at least, they get along, even though, because they're total opposites. Again, Luke wanting to get off Tatooine, but Phineas and Ferb, they're more than happy living on Tatooine. And by the way, because of course, we get one appearance from Phineas and Ferb's parents, Phineas's mom and Ferb's dad, of course, yeah. Because, they want their sons to get out there, to explore the galaxy and such, and with the recommendations they have for them. But no, to them, they just perfectly are, totally happy living on Tatooine and so on. Just, yeah. Anyways, and to speed things up some, because, yeah, of course, by this point, C-3PO, R2-D2 having land on Tatooine, and of course, yeah, same goes for Candace, Buford, and Bao-Ji. And by the way, because, yeah, Luke Skywalker and C-3PO, because they're voiced by Luke being voiced by Christopher Corey Smith, and, he does a pretty good job voicing Luke. And as for C-3PO, oh boy, because it's not Anthony Daniels. It is, however, someone we do love, and that being Simon Pegg. Yeah, I mean, look, no hard feelings on Simon Pegg, of course. We all love the guy, but it's still were they not able to get Anthony Daniels, or just, I don't know, maybe I don't know. It's, yeah, Dan Swampy, come on. You couldn't have gotten Anthony Daniels. I'm just saying. Not that I'm wanting to make a big deal out of it, but yeah, because again, we all love Simon Pegg, and he did a pretty good job voicing C-3PO. And this isn't technically the first time he's, played C-3PO, because I don't know if you guys would know this. If any of you by any chance, did have, and do have, the Blu-ray copy of Star Wars, all 6 films, where, one of the bonus feature discs featuring the spoofs and parodies, and one of them contains Simon Pegg and Nick Frost reenacting the scene where, yeah, C-3PO and R2-D2 first land on Tatooine. It's pretty funny. I mean, you can also find it on YouTube, just, yeah. But yeah, so that was technically another time that, you know, we saw Simon Pegg playing a bit of C-3PO, but yeah. Also, Simon Pegg voices Candace's CO. Yeah, so the CO. Yeah, an Imperial officer, I presume. Yeah, because, as you know, as mentioned earlier. So yeah, just overall, because from Simon Pegg, Dan Swampy, and Richard O'Brien, because they voice some Imperial members of the Empires. Yeah, from Imperial officers to Stormtroopers. Yeah. And, of course, have to acknowledge Carolyn Rhee and Richard O'Brien, as mentioned, yeah, voicing Linda and Lawrence. Yeah. You know, it's, again, just the one time we get the appearance of Phineas and Ferb's parents. But, hey, you know, it was still worth it, and, you know, worked totally fine that, you know, we didn't see them throughout the rest of this. Yeah, just for that one scene. But, yeah, anyways. And Candace, like, then going into a song number about, you know, her joining the Empire, because, you know, in the Empire, because what it's like for her to join the Empire and such, but little does she know, and until she has a change of heart, yeah. When a miracle happens for her, and when she goes from being a part of the dark side to the light side, yeah. But yeah, overall, In the Empire is another pretty good song. Also, I forgot to mention this because, like, those two Imperial officers, you know, there goes another one. Hold your fire. There's no life forms. Must have short-circuited. Well, yeah, because they thought that one escape pod had short-circuited, but little did they know that, yeah, R2 and 3PO were on that escape pod. Well, they went on like, a coffee break or something, and they totally missed the other escape pod that launched, and they had Sith Roast decaf. That's funny. And that jingle, because we've heard that jingle before, like, Victory Gum! Yeah, that. Anyways, so continuing on, because, yeah, well, and to speed things up some, because, yeah, Perry, trying to catch up and locate R2 and 3PO, most notably R2, well, Perry happens to see that, yeah, R2's been captured by the Jawas and was going to rescue R2 there. I mean, he snuck on the Jawas' transport system, but it wasn't until the next day that, yeah, having to be quiet and keep an eye out on R2 until the time was right to lure R2 and to get him out of there. Just, yeah, where, yeah, because by the next day we see, Luke and Uncle Owen purchasing two droids, originally R5, but of course we know what happens to R5, then R2. And Uncle Owen in this being voiced by Nick Jameson, you know, just only having just like one or two lines, but hey, he was still pretty good as Uncle Owen, yeah. When Perry then, you know, sneaks R2 out of the homestead, well, because, yeah, 3PO's having another oil bath, and Perry getting R2's attention, they sneak out, and when, yeah, at that moment where Luke is having a moment to himself, staring at the twin suns, like, yeah, and, yeah, they sneak out perfectly, however, they do accidentally run into Phineas and Ferb, yeah, because they're on their speeder, hooked up with, you know, the pod racing material and such, and, yeah, they accidentally run into Perry and R2, and R2 hops in their speeder while Perry's holding off to the side of an edge, you know, cliff, and Phineas and Ferb, they interact and meet with R2, and they realize, and when R2 tells them, and, you know, good that they can speak droid, that R2's making his way to find and see Obi-Wan Kenobi, and Phineas and Ferb happen to know whom Obi-Wan Kenobi is, going by Ben Kenobi, because apparently once a week they have Jedi lessons, you know, with Ben Kenobi, and they offer R2 a ride, but R2's got it from here. He'll just walk, so yeah. And thus, that's what happens. And Perry, he's once again separated when, yeah, I mean, he tried to hold on to Phineas and Ferb's speeder, but then, you know, he falls again, and he finds himself in the middle of a Tusken Raider birthday party. A little Tusken Raiders having a birthday party. Perry landed on the Tusken's birthday cake, and now he has to make a new one. At least he was let off the hook after making the birthday cake. The Tusken Raiders let him go. Like, that's like the one, like probably the rarest thing that we would see from the Tusken Raiders. I mean, I guess it depends, and I mean, hey, because in Star Wars itself, you know, when it came to, say, The Mandalorian and the Book of Boba Fett, Mando and Boba, they had some good luck when it came to interacting with the Tuskens, right? So, yeah. That shows that there can be some people that can be on good terms and make peace with the Tuskens. But anyways, and in this, Perry managed to do so. And Perry came before, say, Mando and Boba when they encountered and interact with the Tuskens. Yeah. And by the way, because Perry receiving a transmission from, well, who else? Major Hologram. Of course, they had to go there. Because, you know, his actual name being, you know, Agent Monogram, because, you know, it's funny. And, yeah, because Major Hologram mentioning to Perry because of what he needs to do and with his mission, because, you know, to retrieve the Death Star plans and, what else is happening, just, yeah. Okay, and by the way, because I didn't talk about him yet, but until now, Doofenshmirtz, yes, Doofenshmirtz's appearance in this, going by Darthenshmirtz, yes. Well, as mentioned earlier, it turns out that Darthenshmirtz was responsible for the design and look of the Death Star. Originally, it was supposed to be small and to break open a nutcracker, but his idea being stolen and used by the Empire, of course, most notably Palpatine, Darth Vader, and such, and becoming a big space station with the capability of destroying a planet, and yeah. And Darthenshmirtz paying a visit to the Death Star, and, you know, the fully operative Death Star, you know, how that jingle goes. Of course we have to have that. And, by the way, Norm appearing in this, and he's Norm 3PO. He's half Norm, half Protocol Droid, yeah. And, of course, John Venier voicing Norm, obviously, and Dan voicing Doofenshmirtz, yeah. Yeah, of course, you know, and hey, because as mentioned, when Dan drew Doofenshmirtz in a Darth Vader costume, well, obviously, we were to expect that, right? And thus, it's in the special itself, yeah. And apparently, as I recall, yeah, Darthenshmirtz is not one of the biggest Siths in this, yeah. And he wants to make a name of himself. And even when he does board the Death Star, he tries to have a conversation with Darth Vader. And yeah, Darth Vader, of course, appearing in this. There's one thing that's off of Vader, his box, because his appearance and look and say, yeah, from Revenge of the Sith, the Kenobi series, Rogue One, and A New Hope, well, on his box, the lights, you know, the buttons, one of them is green. In this, it's not. It's blue. But I don't want to make a huge deal about it. Just, yeah. I just thought I'd point that out because, you know, attention to detail and, you know, in fact, like, I did notice, of course, when looking at Vader's appearance and look in this, some of the gear he has, like, you know, very identical to how it is, you know, in his appearance in A New Hope. Minus, like, one light to one of the buttons that's not green, it's blue, but, yeah, still. Yes, and Darth Vader, he's just walking his way and, you know, not once paying attention to Doofenshmirtz. Obviously, he knows he's right there, but he wants nothing to do with Darthenshmirtz. Not even wanting to listen to Darthenshmirtz's pitch. He's wanting to do something that requires Vader's force powers, but, of course, yeah, Darthenshmirtz is going to have to find another way to do this with what he's planning to do. So, yeah. So coming back to Tatooine, because, yeah, again, Perry and R2, they were separated, and, well, Phineas and Ferb do discover that what came from R2, and as mentioned earlier, that they find themselves in the hands of the Death Star plans. And, you know, even, like, looking at the recorded message, R2 did show that to them, you know, with Princess Leia. Help me, Obi-Wan Kenobi, you're my only hope, and yeah. But yeah, when they realize that they have it in their hands, like, they've got to get it back to R2, and when they find out further that, yeah, it's the Death Star plans, the details and such that, you know, for the rebels to find their way into the Death Star and the treachery and, you know, and to take down and destroy / obliterate the Death Star. And even when they technically get some help from this one Toitarian, whom Christopher Corey Smith also voices. Not only does he voice Luke, he also voices this Toitarian called Blotto. Yeah, I think I did pronounce that right. Not Watto. This is a completely different Toitarian, but he does look and, of course, act like Watto. I mean, that's pretty much how all Toitarians, how they are with those accents, just, yeah. And yeah, because looking at all the details of the Death Star plans, and yeah, because they've got to get them back into R2. However, with Candace, Baljeet, and Buford still roaming around Tatooine, and by this point, they've all made their way to Mos Eisley. Well, Candace happening to spot the boys with the Death Star plans, and a little chase sequence that we get, you know, where they're chasing the boys, and then, like, say, when it leads up to, say, in Mos Eisley. By this point, yeah, Phineas and Ferb missed their shot trying to get the Death Star plans back into R2, because, yeah, Obi-Wan, Luke, R2, and 3PO have now boarded the Millennium Falcon, and unfortunately, bad timing for Phineas and Ferb because the stormtroopers showing up. Stop that ship! Blast them! Yeah, and the Falcon taking off, and well, what are they going to do now? Well, they have to find a pilot of their own, you know, to take them to catch up to the Millennium Falcon. And just so happens, and at Mos Eisley, the bartender tells them, you know, where to find, you know, a pilot and such, and who else than Isabella? Yeah, Isabella, whom is the Han Solo of this, and, you know, acting in the same territory as Han Solo. Yeah, they're in, like, that same vein, but yeah. And, of course, yeah, Isabella, I mean, yeah, her name is, like, some of these characters, their names being slightly changed, but not all of them, yeah. Phineas and Ferb, their names are the same, and so is Perry's, and Isabella. And, of course, yeah, Alison Stoner voicing Isabella. And also, Isabella's connections with Han Solo in this because, you know, best said by Dan and Swampy, she's, like, you know, Han Solo is her Newman, and apparently Han Solo beat her by, you know, the whole thing on the 12 parsecs, you know, making the jump, the Kessel Run in 12 parsecs. She would have made it to 12 parsecs, but she made it to 11, which is pretty funny. And her kind of having a grudge towards Solo. And, well, I mean, she managed to, you know, win. Phineas and Ferb, they negotiate and talk with Isabella. Yeah, she does help them out. Even though the fact that she can't stand Solo, and even whenever, like, his name is mentioned, just, yeah. And by the way, because after the Cantina Band finished, well, then came in Vanessa, who is a Twi'lek in this. Yeah, Vanessa the Twi'lek. Also, Olivia Olson, having, of course, be the voice of Vanessa. She also voices Crowd. I want to say someone in the crowd. I don't know. I mean, that's literally what I'm looking at, just, yeah. But, yeah. Seeing Vanessa as a Twi'lek is pretty interesting, yeah. And the songs that she has, and the song number that she sings in the cantina. Max Rebo is there playing keyboard, and yeah. And one of the lyrics that Vanessa the Twi'lek sings is "so low," you know, so and low. L-O-W. W's at the end. I mean, it sounds like Han Solo, his last name, yeah, and Isabella, you think that she shot Vanessa, but no, shot her microphone. Well, says Vanessa. Also, we get a quick appearance of Greedo, like, his body being carried out. Oh my gosh, I mean, you know, I mean, let's face it, because, you know, we know that Greedo was fried, Han Solo shot him, and say what you will about the whole Han shot first thing. Yeah, anyways, we're not talking about that. We're not here to talk about that. Anyways, so yeah, Isabella helping out Phineas and Ferb. They make their way to docking bay 94. Well, yeah, in a different docking position. They get in her ship, the Centennial Chihuahua. Oh, it's funny. I mean, it doesn't really remotely look like anything like a Chihuahua. However, the name of why it's named, the last name is Chihuahua, well, that's personal for her. Well, I mean, because, duh, in Phineas and Ferb itself, she has a pet Chihuahua. And the fact that her pet Chihuahua, like Perry, is a secret agent. But anyway, so them making their way on board up to when, Candace, Buford, and Baljeet, they step in to try to stop them. But yeah, of course, they get away and destroying a piece of that docking bay building, tipping over and such. Yeah. So Candace, Buford, and Baljeet, they lost them. But, with them making their way back to the Death Star, they still got to deliver those socks for Vader, but the Imperial officer takes it from Candace and the others in this bag, because they did get new black socks for Vader in Mos Eisley, but the Imperial officer, that was Candace's CO, taking it from Candace, he'll deliver the socks to himself, to Vader, and he's not going to let them get on board the fancy shuttlecraft, from the Empire. Instead, they'll take a ride on this piece of junk bus, that will make its way to the Death Star. However, Buford realizes that they still have the socks in their hands. Yeah. What did that Imperial officer take? Well, he accidentally took Buford's hoagie. Uh-oh. And, yeah, Vader, of course, is not pleased, and instead of socks, it's a hoagie. And Vader, who gets one line in this, and literally, because, Vader, not voiced by anybody we would know. I presume, someone who works in animation, obviously. Yeah, and obviously Phineas and Ferb. Yeah. Vader, for one line, was voiced by Eddie Pittman. Yeah. Just for one line, and I think what Eddie brought to the for the one voice performance of Vader, just for one line, I find your lack of socks disturbing. Well, he did pretty well, and yeah, because he is in the art department of Phineas and Ferb. He also, before Phineas and Ferb, did some other animation materials in Disney. He worked most notably, because the most notable thing he does is the Department of Animation. He did the animation departments for, say, Mulan, Tarzan, and The Emperor's New Groove. That's what I'm looking at, known for. And, having also, doing a lot more Disney TV animation. He even did storyboard artwork on for something VeggieTales, Minnesota Cuke and the Search for Noah's Umbrella. Pretty cool. Yeah, and that's another thing, because now I'm thinking of it, because some other Disney animators also found their way doing VeggieTales stuff. Obviously Tim Hodge, for example. Yeah. What's in face, who was one of the main animators for Mushu, found his way in working on VeggieTales. I mean, he was even on, I think, one or two Corridor Crew episodes. You know who I'm talking about, and also, Eddie Pittman, back on him, because he also would work with Dan and Swampy again, most notably Dan Povenmire on Hamster and Gretel. Yeah, so, anyways. So, just thought I'd get that out of the way. It's really cool, because the fact that this guy, whom most notably working in the animation department, and he did some of the, he worked on some of the biggest Disney films, as mentioned. The fact that he would get to voice Vader for one line, well, I mean, hey, that was awesome. Anyways, okay, so with that out of the way, we're done talking about Eddie Pittman, and just, with Vader getting one line, not the socks, it's a hoagie, so by this point, all of the characters making their way to the Death Star. Well, I mean, of course, because, with what happens in A New Hope, the characters going from, say, Tatooine to the Death Star to Yavin. So, yeah. And by the way, because coming back to Darfenschmerz, because he then does some research to find a way to what he's going to build, and what he tried to, pitch to Vader. And he does some, and with it requiring Vader's Force. Well, that's because when doing research, apparently, what Doofenshmirtz needs for what he's going to build and requiring Vader's Force powers, the dark side of the Force basically from Vader, and it has to be Vader specifically, basically picking up and collecting garbage that was used by Vader. Okay? And also apparently Doofenshmirtz happening to pull up, like, a real estate or something. This has to do with Alderaan, because I believe, he was going to, I guess, move on the planet Alderaan. But, yeah, right as he's looking at that, well, we can see that, Alderaan is outside of space, and, well, should have seen it coming, of course. Alderaan obliterated, and, then, it goes down to 0 with what Doofenshmirtz is looking on, with the real estate thing, just... It's hilarious. I wonder if Doofenshmirtz did find out that, Alderaan was destroyed and why it went down to 0. That was pretty funny. And then coming back to Isabella, Phineas, and Ferb, well, because, them making their way to, of course, catch up with the Millennium Falcon, and Phineas, wanting to make friends, make a friendship with Isabella, but she's not having any of it, and even, when Phineas and Ferb notice something that that Isabella has, which is pretty funny, but anyway, so, then they catch up to the Millennium Falcon, up to, having for both the Millennium Falcon and the Centennial Chihuahua being pulled in by, tractor beam and such. Obviously coming from the Death Star. And Isabella thinking that the Death Star is this moon, but Phineas telling her that that's no moon, and it's the Death Star. So so them both ships being pulled in by the tractor beam, and Phineas and Ferb help out Isabella to, disguise her ship. Basically, make a hologram disguise or something, and they have the tools with them, lightsaber tools, literally. They ignite, and it's pretty funny. They managed to succeed in time, and, now Isabella's ship, the Centennial Chihuahua, is now disguised as a donut ship. And this is where we see officers Dan and Jeff. Because when Isabella, disguising her voice, telling them, if they want any donuts, and, they're more than happy to have some donuts, and Imperial officers, Jeff and Dan, making a funny comment on Darth Vader, and Imperial Officer Dan tricking Jeff into thinking that, he's being choked by Vader, and as if, Vader can't hear that they're making a joke about him and such, from a very far distance, wherever Vader is roaming around the Death Star, Also, you realize this, that, there's one character that we don't get an appearance of, and that's Tarkin. He doesn't, not even for, one single scene does he, make an appearance in this. But, again, I don't want to make a huge deal about it. It still turned out fine. I mean, we obviously know that Tarkin is present on the Death Star, despite we don't see him on screen, but and with the lack of, say, how much we get of, say, Vader and Kenobi. But, because when we briefly see Kenobi, but then when we get a good shot of him a little later, but just, and by the way, because, Perry, by this point, he, has made his way to the Death Star, and, he is to not only retrieve the Death Star plans, but to confront Darfenschmerz. And, when confronting Darfenschmerz, even before that happens, because, when they do board the Death Star, and they're falling for it, the stormtroopers and Imperial officers for the disguised donut ship, and then thus Isabella, Phineas, and Ferb making their way through the Death Star. They're looking at a map, which direction to go, and, they happen to cross paths with Perry. And by this point, they know what Perry is like, because Phineas explains to Isabella that Perry was once their pet platypus, up to when they discovered and realized that he was a secret rebellion agent. They were upset about it at first, but yeah, and, well, thus, Perry went his separate ways. So yeah, his identity being revealed, and, can no longer be with the family. So yeah. Well, Perry, he has to proceed on with what he's doing. He can't stick around with the boys and Isabella. So yeah, when Perry goes off to confront Doofenshmirtz, when trying to take on Doofenshmirtz, up to when, Perry gets frozen in carbonite. However, he does manage to, move his eyes and such, yeah. And Doofenshmirtz unveils what he has now built. And even when, containing garbage that was used by Vader by creating a Sithinator. Yes, of course, a Nader has to be in there. Yeah, and basically the Sithinator, it's this machine that can turn anybody into a Sith, and it can make Doofenshmirtz very powerful, and him going into a song number, and yeah, with the Sithinator. And I gotta say, because Doofenshmirtz's song number, the Sithinator, it's a pretty good one, a pretty good song for Doofenshmirtz. I don't know, because this would be up there, right? Because yeah, being one of the top best pretty good songs for Doofenshmirtz, because there was this, and the other one I can think of is, well, from the Second Dimension. I found a brand new best friend, and it's me. Yeah, that's another good one too, with Doofenshmirtz and his evil version from the Second Dimension. But yeah, and Doofenshmirtz going into detail on what the Sithinator is like, and how he hopes to manage to be more powerful and popular, and managing to take down Vader, being the next in line, and then say impressing Palpatine. We kind of get an appearance of Palpatine, but him as a puppet, a hand puppet from Doofenshmirtz. But yeah, overall, the Sithinator song number was pretty good. Yeah, and especially when it comes to Doofenshmirtz, and whenever he has a song number and he sings, just, yeah. Even the background, backup dancers, well, being stormtroopers, lady stormtroopers. Even though we already have a lady stormtrooper, technically, Candace, but yeah, anyways. Okay, so continuing on, because, yeah, Phineas, Isabella, and Ferb, them trying to find R2, and obviously, and clearly, yes, by this point, well, Han, Luke, and Chewie, they're on board the Death Star. So is Kenobi, R2, and 3PO, each of them going their separate ways, because, well, Kenobi managing to, turn off the shield, the Death Star, so they can make their escape, while Luke, Han, and Chewie go to help and break out Princess Leia, and R2 and 3PO staying behind, monitoring, and so on. Well, at one point, Ferb, he apparently has the Force in him, and I think the same goes technically for Phineas, I want to say. Yeah. Ferb can sense that Perry's in trouble, and he's going to take it upon himself to go and help Perry. And yeah, Ferb getting a few lines here and there. And again, as I said in my last review, where, yeah, when it comes to, say, some of the Phineas and Ferb specials, from this, Mission Marvel, and the movies, Ferb would get more than just, say, one or two lines, right? So, yeah. And, of course, yeah, having good old Thomas Brody Sangster voicing Ferb. And, by the way, I meant to bring this up, and good thing I am still. I remember that, coincidentally, just 1 year after Thomas and Simon Pegg would do this, they would find themselves in something else Star Wars. Actually, something Star Wars. And that, of course, being The Force Awakens. You know, I don't even need to say their appearances in Force Awakens, because I know. Anyways, so yeah, so that's good for them. Good for them that they did do something Star Wars, which being this, but to actually be in something Star Wars, oh yeah. Anyways, so yeah, again, Ferb going off on his own to help and find and help, Perry, and a moment where, yeah, he is on a bridge that's underneath another bridge where Ben Kenobi is walking by. And yeah, because it was pretty funny. The fact that, of course, they're both in Jedi robes, yeah. And that's really all we get of Kenobi. In fact, no, because he doesn't get a single line. Yeah. But anyway, so, yeah. So again, Candace, Phineas and Isabella, still, them proceeding. And then, yeah, when coming back to Candace, Buford, and Baljeet, at one point, they come face-to-face with these two Imperial officers whom we actually see, like, they're interacting with, just so happens to be Han Solo, because, you know, the whole thing of, we're all fine here, everything's under control, we're all fine here, how are you? And, yeah, who is this? What's your operating number? We actually see that Imperial officer, but another one there, and, yeah, Dan was one of those Imperial officers who's really liking the conversation that Han Solo was making. Yeah. And the Imperial officer ordering Candace to remain here and to watch the monitors and such, you know what I'm saying? And, well, Buford and Baljeet, they proceeded on to make their way up to the prison blockade and such. But yeah. And by the way, because Buford and Baljeet, I didn't talk about them that much, like, Candace is the only one, really, that is really has her heart set to the Empire. But Buford and Baljeet, not that much, really. And we could tell, of course, you know, not to really go into full detail, because we know what how their personalities are and what they're like in this, but yeah. Anyways, so, yeah, and still, to speed things up some, because, yeah, because Phineas and Isabella, they once again cross paths with Candace, and she chases them down once again, up to when Candace finds herself, you know, having, like, you know, she's trying to chase Phineas and Ferb, but then, like, yeah, something happens, and she is hanging off to the side of, you know, of a ledge, you know, and in that room where, yeah, Luke and Leia swing by, and we see them, yeah, Phineas can see that Candace is in distress, and he helps her. And that was one of the concept art pieces that we saw when this was announced at Comic-Con. So, yeah, seeing Luke and Leia swinging, and, yeah, Phineas helping Candace. So, yeah, and right there, with Phineas helping Candace, she's surprised by what Phineas has done, even though the fact that she's a part of the Empire, and Phineas has now become a rebel. But, you know, he still did the right thing, helping Candace. But little does he know, as well as Candace, that in this, they are connected. I mean, duh, but, you know, but when they explain it later on, I mean, we obviously knew from the beginning, right, that somehow, of course, in Phineas and Ferb Star Wars, Candace and Phineas, they're still brother and sister, but how, and how would it be explained? And with Candace being a part of the Empire, yeah, that tops it off. But again, when it's explained later. So after saving Candace, yeah, Phineas and Isabella, they proceed on trying to find R2. Baljeet and Buford, they catch up with Candace, and yeah, because of what happened right there, with Candace being saved by Phineas. A change hits Candace, and technically same goes for Buford and Baljeet, and where, yeah, Candace feels that probably, yeah, maybe she is on the wrong side. Well, duh, because, yeah. Especially because, like, and it's interesting how it's explained, where for anybody that would sign up for the Empire, like if they'd be a stormtrooper and such, they would be blindsided thinking that, yeah, they're on the good side, you know? The Empire trying to make peace, but not. Yeah, so that's what happened to Buford and Baljeet and Candace when they signed up for the Empire. Baljeet signed up for the Empire accidentally, and what he explains, like, it's pretty funny. But anyway, so then, at one point, yeah, when Ferb, he tries to locate and find Perry, whom, yeah, by this point, he had been frozen in carbonite, even hung up as a wall decoration. Of course, it has to be that. And Darthenschmerz is about to test the Sithinator on Perry. However, Ferb can see what's happening, and he saves Perry, taking the beam that comes from the Sithinator. It strikes/hits Ferb, and like, this is not good, and that's not what Doofenshmirtz intended to target at, but, you know, he's perfectly okay with it. And then Doofenshmirtz has to collect more garbage that was touched by Vader to, yeah, refill the Sithinator. And, yeah, Ferb, we then see him with yellow eyes, and, oh, this is not a good sign. Yeah, and where this is leading. Yeah, and coming back to Isabella and Phineas, because, yeah, well, still, them trying to find R2, but they yet again missed their shot, because by this point, Han Solo, Luke, Leia, and Chewbacca. Well, there was one moment, of course, where, yeah, Doofenshmirtz collecting more pieces of garbage from, you know, the garbage chute, and thus, where, yeah, that sequence where Han, Luke, Leia, and Chewie are in the garbage chute, and, yeah, Doofenshmirtz in scuba gear, and interacting with the monster that's in the garbage chute, and, helping out Doofenshmirtz collect garbage that was touched by Vader. Even the monster grabbing Luke. Well, that explains it. You know, and the fact that little does Doofenshmirtz know that, well, technically, you know, could use Luke, I guess, because, well, I mean, you know, the fact that Luke, and when it comes to episode 5, we learn that, yeah, Luke is the son of Vader. Yeah, so imagine, but of course, yeah, but of course that's really for laughs and a joke. So yeah, like sees Luke as just some guy, like he's not important. But again, little does Doofenshmirtz know. But yeah, so collecting more garbage, and Doofenshmirtz was responsible for, you know, activating the garbage to be crushed and such, and with it, Han, Luke, Leia, and Chewie. Then of course leading to when, yeah, R2 has to shut down all of the garbage disposals, just, yeah, shut them all down. So yeah, after that, again, Phineas and Isabella, they still missed their shot on bringing back the Death Star plans to R2, because, yeah, they've made their way to the Millennium Falcon, and, well, obviously, Obi-Wan has been killed, and he sacrificed himself, yeah, being killed by Vader, and, yeah, thus the Millennium Falcon escapes, and, well, what now? Well, you know, they have to catch up to the Millennium Falcon once again. However, Phineas realizes that Ferb has not come back, and he's worried about his brother, and he takes it upon himself to give the Death Star plans to Isabella for her to make her way to where the Falcon is going, and Isabella making it clear to Phineas that she won't come back for him, because after she delivers the Death Star plans, she's out of here. So, yeah. And Phineas, he's willing to take that chance. Yeah. What matters to him, well, I mean, of course, everything's at stake, and the Death Star plans need to get to the rebels, but at the same time, his brother is what matters to him. So thus, Phineas making his way to find and retrieve his brother, while Isabella, of course, making her way, and Isabella even saying, "How do you know I will take it to the rebels?" and so on. "I trust you," says Phineas. Yeah. So yeah, Phineas trying to locate and find his brother, and he does so, and he's too late by this point because, again, yeah, as we saw, Ferb being struck by the Sithinator, now he's become a Sith, and he's put on makeup, Darth Maul. Oh man, just, yeah. When it was revealed that we were going to see Ferb and Darth Maul get up, even his hair sticking up like, you know, it's supposed to resemble Darth Maul's horns. That was pretty funny. And yeah, man, because Ferb being evil and wanting to take down his brother, and with Phineas not wanting to join the dark side, he finds that hilarious, but yeah. And of course, yeah, Ferb igniting his Sith lightsaber, double-bladed, and when Phineas ignites his lightsaber, but then when it leads to, say, them making upgrades to their lightsabers, more, you know, blades coming out of the lightsaber. It's pretty funny. And yeah, and also because Isabella, by this point, yeah, she's made her way to Yavin, bringing the Death Star plans back to R2, and the two rebels that were going to get the Death Star plans hooked up to the computer and such, well, they did notice that, yeah, the Death Star plans are missing, and what are they going to do? We can blame it on Jar Jar. Oh, Jar Jar. Them referencing Jar Jar, just cut Jar Jar some slack. Well, no. And then one of them mentioning that, Jar Jar retired 20 years ago. By the way, because shout out to my friends over at So You Want to Be an Imagineer, because they brought this up. Because you realize this? We didn't get an appearance of Irvin in this, the character that Jack McBrayer voices. It would have been great if we did get him in this, but, it did turn out fine without him being in there. Just like what I said with Tarkin, but yeah. And besides, not every single Phineas and Ferb character. I know Jeremy wasn't in this, but, still turned out fine with neither, say, Tarkin, Jeremy, and Irving. But my point being on Irvin is that, as mentioned, my friends over, because when they covered Phineas and Ferb Star Wars, them mentioning Irving, like maybe in this, he would be, say, a Gungan, Irvin Banks or something, however they put at it. I will put a text, because I definitely, it's pretty funny. Again, it would have been nice if Irving appeared, and maybe, just maybe, he could have been a Gungan. But who really knows? Yeah. And if it would have occurred to Dan and Swampy. And also, Stacy not being in this either. That's another big Phineas and Ferb character, too, that did not appear in this. And Carl! Carl as well. Major Monogram, of course, appearing in this. But yeah, no Jeremy, no Irving, no Stacy, no Carl. And of course, in Star Wars, no Tarkin. But at the same time, it all turned out fine. And can't forget to mention Aunt Beru. We got Uncle Owen, but no Aunt Beru. I mean, we did get one brief shot / appearance of Jabba in the We Love Tatooine song. So, yeah, we did get Jabba at least. And Boba Fett. Boba Fett did appear as well, because there's one moment where Boba Fett is doing grocery shopping, and he sees a wanted poster, which is Han and Chewie. And yeah, where this leads to next, where Boba is with Jabba, and where Jabba confronting Han right outside of the Millennium Falcon. Yeah, that's great. All right, anyway, so as I was saying, back to where I was. The Death Star plans are not there, but Isabella's showing up and lending the Death Star plans to them. So yeah, now they can proceed on analyzing the Death Star plans and how to take down the Death Star. Yes, and which of course would lead to the Battle of Yavin. And Isabella, she does at one point come face to face with the Fireside Girls, whom in this are rebels, and they know who Isabella is, and they're offering her, they want Isabella to help and join with them and the others, because they're at stake right now, because the Fireside Girls in this, they are trained rebels, being trained and such, and to be the future rebels, and the fact that everything's at stake, they are to be placed into X-Wings and such, but Isabella, she wants no part of this. And one of the Fireside Girls that does get a line is Gretchen. And Gretchen, once again, being voiced by Ariel Winter. And then we hear Porkins off to the side, worst speech ever, like what he says to Gretchen, the speech she made to Isabella. And Porkins, who does get 2 lines, being voiced by Jeff Stewart. Yeah, it's nice to see that Porkins gets a bit of a spotlight. Besides, Porkins being a fan favorite, one of those characters that everybody loves in Star Wars, you know what I'm saying? Just, I don't know the specific term, but yeah. Oh, by the way, because to mention some of the other voice cast members, John Mathot, if I'm saying the last name right, the characters that he voiced are, Captain Antilles, the bartender, and Imperial Officer Number 2, and Stormtrooper Number 2. Okay, how did I not recognize his voice? I don't know, it's just one of those things. Adam Savage voices okay, so like the Star Destroyer we see with that office building. Right, he was Office Stormtrooper Number 1. And Jamie Heineman, the Mythbusters. How did I forget? How did I forget that they were in this? I'm being dead serious. Bear with me, it had been a while since I've seen this and having done a rewatch, so I can't believe I didn't recognize their voices, but that's really cool. Well, knowing the Mythbusters, especially Adam, them being big Star Wars guys. Well, duh, because they did work on Star Wars itself, mainly the prequels. Most notably Adam Savage in the model department. So they voice Office Stormtroopers number 1 and 2. That's funny. And and John Michael Higgins, I know who he is. He voices Rebel Officer 2. Kevin Michael Richardson voices Rebel Officer number 1, Imperial Officer number 4, and Stormtrooper number 7. And Robert Hughes voices Cantina MC, and Wayne Brady, man, because some guest voices that they would have, no matter what it is in Phineas and Ferb, it never ceases to be amazing, and awesome at the same time. Wayne Brady voicing Imperial Officer number 7 and Stormtrooper number 9, and he's a singer. So there was at one point that were these two Imperial officers. One of them is talking about wanting to get a saxophone. And, that was pretty funny. But, all right. So let's get back to where I was, because, from Doofenshmirtz, Perry, and such, and well, luckily Perry managed to escape the carbonite, unfreezing himself, when the carbonite, piece of carbonite was knocked over, and, triggering the button to melt Perry. So now he's free. And just that whole sequence where Phineas and Ferb are fighting, Ferb having gone to the dark side, hilarious. And even when Candace steps in helping out Phineas, and when Phineas addresses Candace that this is his brother, even though he's not really like this. And by the way, Doofenshmirtz at one point did get frozen in carbonite, And this is when Perry was freed from the carbonite. He electrocuted Norm 3PO, with those blasters that the Jawas have, and that's apparently the last we see of Norm 3PO. Am I to presume that maybe possibly Norm 3PO survived the destruction of the Death Star or something? I don't know. It's hard to tell. Doofenshmirtz does, because again, Doofenshmirtz having been frozen in carbonite, and now he's held hostage and under, now he's placed under arrest thanks to Perry and such. But eventually Phineas manages to defeat Ferb, who is a Sith, by throwing his damaged lightsaber, where it lands in this hole that will self-destruct the Sithinator, and it does so. Not to mention that Ferb made some modifications to the Sithinator, making it big and powerful. But because Phineas managed to have it be self-destruct, that's the end of that. And Ferb, he is back to his old self. Everything's good now. And, now Candace, along with Baljeet and Buford, helping out Phineas and Ferb, and Perry making his way with Doofenshmirtz under hostage, and, because when Buford and Baljeet step in, they put on Obi-Wan's robe. Little did they know whom robe it was. Anyways, and by the way, coming back to Isabella, because after her conversation with the Fireside Girls, she goes to this. There's a pub or something, on the rebel base of Yavin, and Isabella getting a juice box like she had at Mos Eisley. And Han Solo and Chewbacca step in. And the conversation that Han Solo and Chewbacca have, and Han Solo being voiced by, Roz Marquand, if I'm saying his last name right. He's the dude, he's one of the cast members from The Walking Dead. The Walking Dead. Oh, yeah, and he also played Red Skull in Avengers Infinity War and Endgame. That's him. He even voicing Infinity Ultron in season 1 of What If, and he's also been in the animated show Invincible. So him voicing Han Solo in this, pretty good job. A pretty good Harrison Ford impression. And yeah, the conversation / dialogue that Han Solo and Isabella have, and the whole mentioning of, where are their friends? And, by this point, they know what they should be doing by this point, the right thing to do. Even Chewbacca, what he has to say to both Han Solo and Isabella, yeah, the Wookiee, of course, is right. And by the way, I didn't mention him, D. Bradley Baker, because, well, obviously, D. Bradley Baker voicing Perry, but apparently he's also credited for voicing Chewbacca. But I think, yeah, because, I, of course, can tell. We all can that, the sounds of Chewbacca are, of course, used. But I think, yeah, there's a few sounds that, yeah, that are slightly different, and yeah, D. Bradley Baker did that. He apparently also did the Tusken Raiders, because as he showed when, yeah, this was presented at Comic-Con, and Swampy pointing out, you can guess the part that D did for us. That's what he did, so. And also, D also voices another crowd member. Yeah, so, anyways. So, yeah, again, the Wookiee is right, and thus, yeah, Han and Isabella, they each know what they have to do. And, yeah, where I was, because, yeah, by this point, Candace, Buford, and Baljeet, helping out Phineas and Ferb, they tried to make their escape, from the Death Star. And they tried to take, the last shuttle that's there, but it was already taken, and, yeah, they're now stuck on the Death Star, and by this point, the Battle of Yavin has begun, and Luke is making his way to destroy the Death Star. Yeah, we see that, and, even, when they think that there's no chance of them getting off the Death Star, hey, at least, what they did, being very heroic and such, and if they are to sacrifice themselves on the Death Star, yeah, to go out with the Death Star. And then it's revealed that when Phineas mentions about his sister having left Tatooine to work for the Empire, and that, of course, being Candace. Who else? And yeah, Candace and Phineas realizing that, yeah, they are brother and sister, and, besides, Phineas was just a baby, and Candace being she would have been in her, almost up to her teen years or something? I guess so, yeah. And also, this is the first time that Candace realizes and knows that, Ferb is, Phineas's, is his brother, because, yeah, Candace realizing that her and Phineas's mom had remarried, and her asking, what happened to Dad? And Phineas was about to explain it, but then, boom, the Death Star explodes, and, just so happens that just in the nick of time, literally, Isabella picked them up, and yeah. And also, apparently, the Fireside Girls, they picked up the remaining Imperial officers and stormtroopers that Buford and Baljeet and Candace befriended. Yeah, even one of them, as I mentioned, wanting to have a saxophone, and he got the saxophone. And so, yeah, the Death Star being destroyed, and the aftermath / epilogue. Well, we have the whole ceremony where, yeah, Han and Luke become heroes of the rebellion. They get their medals, minus Chewie. Of course, have to mention it. And, yeah, then Chewie, because apparently what he said at the very end of A New Hope was, and when Phineas, understanding what Chewie says, the Wookiee's right, let's have a party, and thus, they have a party, everybody dancing, even C-3PO, R2-D2, Princess Leia, Perry being there too. I think, yeah, Chewie was dancing as well, except for Luke and Han, because they became the heroes. They don't need to, they gotta be men. So, yeah. But anyways, by the way, because with Perry, yeah, because having captured Darfenschmerz, well, yeah, Major Hologram congratulating Perry, and little does Hologram know that, the Death Star had already been destroyed. Yeah, because, pointing out to Perry that reinforcements will arrive to take down the Death Star, but, yeah. And as for Darfenschmerz still being frozen in carbonite, well, he managed to unfreeze himself and make his escape in a tiny escape pod that's built for Perry's size, and yeah. So, and Darfenschmerz commenting that he will live again for the sequel. Hey, just like Darth Vader, because, yeah. Oh, that's funny. Yeah. And again, the whole dance party, and Vanessa the Twi'lek being there, and even, the Imperial officer with the saxophone playing, and, the last song number that we get, Rebel, Let's Go. Like, that was a pretty good song number, and that being the final song number, and as the credits roll. And right before it ends off, Porkins! He survived. How? We know he was obliterated, but apparently in this, he survived. And he destroyed the sign that was saying, Rebel, let's go. Just, it wasn't his fault. He didn't intentionally meant to do that, but just, that was a hilarious way to end this off. And of course, having a dance party. And of course, this being something Phineas and Ferb, but so, Phineas and Ferb Star Wars. Yet another great piece of Phineas and Ferb material. Another fantastic, well-put Phineas and Ferb special, without a doubt. First, starting with Marvel, and then Star Wars. Phineas and Ferb never disappoints with what they do sometimes. Everything about Phineas and Ferb Star Wars is amazing, from beginning to end. How it's done, having the characters, being in the events of A New Hope, and the main storyline of A New Hope is as it is, like, not a single change, but with Phineas and Ferb being there, and with the other characters, their involvement in what's going on, and especially with the Death Star plans, and, the story from beginning to end in the world of Phineas and Ferb, the characters in the world of Star Wars, and the song numbers, the animation, of course, fantastic. The use of the music and score of John Williams from A New Hope is fantastic, and with the blend of the music and score of Phineas and Ferb, just, excellent. And the voice talents, fantastic, of course, and whom voices the Star Wars characters, the guest voices from Mythbusters, Wayne Brady, need I go on, just, the jokes, the hilarious / funny moments, and a few emotional moments here and there. Everything about Phineas and Ferb Star Wars is amazing. Perfect in every way. And as it should, because, this being Phineas and Ferb. And I'm giving Phineas and Ferb Star Wars, well, what the heck, 10 out of 10 stars. Yes, 10 out of 10 stars for Phineas and Ferb Star Wars. And what about you guys? What did you think of Phineas and Ferb Star Wars itself? What were your fondest memories of Phineas and Ferb Star Wars when it first came out? Were any of you like me, I don't see why not, that you were there when you first heard of Phineas and Ferb Star Wars announcement, when it was first announced at Comic-Con, when getting hyped for it and such, and when the first trailers came out, and when it premiered, just, what are some of your favorite moments, your favorite jokes, and favorite songs, stuff that goes on in Phineas and Ferb Star Wars, the characters of Phineas and Ferb in the world of Star Wars, this taking place in the events of Episode 4, A New Hope, just, Overall, what do you think of Phineas and Ferb Star Wars itself, and with what I've had to say, my review, and what did you think of my review? Leave comments and give this review video a like, as always. And so, with all that being said, thank you very much for watching. I hope you guys enjoyed my review of Phineas and Ferb Star Wars. More review videos are coming your way. They're going to be awesome. Keep looking forward, and I will see you guys in the next video / review. And, well, we've got one more Phineas and Ferb material to review, a part of Phineas and Ferb Weekend. Stay tuned later tonight, because the final piece of Phineas and Ferb material that I'll be reviewing, again, a part of Phineas and Ferb Weekend, well, it's something else space-related, where the boys, and actually, most notably Candace, finds herself in space, and, well, this being Phineas and Ferb's second movie, which premiered on Disney+. This was the early comeback for Phineas and Ferb, until, say, the show itself would be revived and such. But, Yeah, you know what it is. Yeah, just overall, stay tuned for that. The last piece of Phineas and Ferb material that I'll be reviewing, a part of Phineas and Ferb Weekend, Phineas and Ferb the movie, Candace Against the Universe. Take care, peace out, and may the Force be with you.